You wake up every day feeling like you're pushing against something invisible, like no matter how hard you try, life just won't move. Bills, pressure, doubt, it all feels real. But what if I told you the struggle you're experiencing isn't coming from your circumstances? It's coming from your perception. See, most people don't fail because life is hard. They fail because they've been conditioned to believe the struggle is necessary for success. That belief is costing you time, money, peace, and purpose. The truth is, struggle is not a requirement for success. It's often a symptom of misalignment. When you think wrong, you act wrong. When you act wrong, you get the wrong results. And then you call it struggle. Today, we're going to expose the lie, shift your perspective, and show you how to move from unnecessary struggle into intentional success. Let me challenge something you may have believed your entire life. The struggle you keep talking about, the thing you've been blaming for your lack of progress, it's not the source of your problem. It's the symptom. And as long as you keep treating symptoms, you'll never eliminate the real issue. Most people wake up and say, life is hard, business is hard, money is hard. But I want you to think about this. What if it's not hard? What if you've just been thinking about it wrong? Because your results don't come from your circumstances. They come from your thinking about your circumstances. See, if struggle were the source, then everybody in the same situation would get the same results. But that's not what happens, is it? Two people can grow up in the same neighborhood, face the same obstacles, have access to the same resources, and one thrives while the other barely survives. So what's the difference? It's not the environment, it's the interpretation. What you call struggle is often the friction between the way things are and the way you think they should be. And when your expectations don't match reality, you feel tension. That tension gets labeled as struggle, but the tension isn't the problem. The misalignment is. Let me make it plain. If you try to build a business but you believe deep down that selling is manipulation, you're going to struggle. Not because business is hard, but because your belief system is fighting your actions. If you want financial freedom but you believe money is evil, you're going to sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. And then you'll say, it's just so hard out here. No, it's not hard. You're just divided within yourself. Struggle is what shows up when your internal blueprint doesn't match external reality. It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on. The car can move, but it's going to feel forced, it's going to feel heavy, and eventually something's going to break. Not because the road is difficult, but because the system you're using is flawed. And here's the part most people miss. You don't fix a flawed system by pushing harder. You fix it by correcting it. But most people have been trained to respond to struggle with more effort, work harder, grind more, push through. But what if pushing through is actually pushing you deeper into the problem? Because if your thinking is off, more effort just amplifies the wrong direction. You don't need more hustle, you need better alignment. You need to stop and ask yourself, what must I be believing that's creating this result? Because every result you have is perfectly aligned with your belief system. Not your wishes, not your goals, your beliefs. If you believe opportunities are scarce, you won't even see them when they're right in front of you. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll hesitate at the very moment you should act. And then when the opportunity passes, you'll call it bad luck or struggle, but it wasn't either, it was a reflection. So instead of asking, why is this so hard? Start asking, what am I seeing wrong? That question will change your life. Because it shifts your focus from the outside world to your internal wiring. And that's the only place real transformation happens. You don't get paid for how hard something is. You get paid for the value you bring and the problems you solve. And when you're aligned with that truth, things that once felt like a struggle start to feel like strategy. You stop forcing outcomes and start creating them. The struggle you feel is real, but it's not coming from where you think it is. It's not attacking you, it's revealing you. It's showing you the gap between what is and what you believe about what is. And once you close that gap, the struggle doesn't stand a chance. Let's go a little deeper, because this is where things really start to shift. You didn't just wake up one day and decide that struggle was normal. You were trained to believe that, conditioned, programmed, and most of it happened so early, so subtly, you never stopped to question it. From a young age, you heard things like, nothing worth having comes easy, or you have to work hard for every dollar, or life isn't supposed to be easy. And without realizing it, you didn't just hear those statements, you accepted them as truth. They became part of your identity. So now every time something feels difficult, you don't question it, you validate it. You say, see, this is how it's supposed to be. But let me ask you something. Who told you that struggle is the price of success? And more importantly, what if they were wrong? Because when you believe that success must be painful, you will unconsciously reject anything that comes with ease. Opportunities will show up, doors will open, connections will be offered, and instead of stepping into them, you'll hesitate. You'll overthink, you'll complicate it. Why? Because it doesn't match the story you've been telling yourself. If it's not hard, it's not valuable. So what do? You create difficulty where it doesn't belong. You delay action. You second-guess simple solutions. You turn a straight path into a maze. Not because you have to, but because you've been conditioned to feel uncomfortable with ease. And then you look at your life and say, why is everything such a struggle? Not realizing you've been rehearsing that script for years. See, conditioning doesn't just shape what you think, it shapes what you allow. If you've been conditioned to believe that wealth is rare, you won't allow yourself to pursue it boldly. If you've been conditioned to believe that successful people are lucky or dishonest, you'll distance yourself from the very behaviors that could change your life. Not consciously, but automatically. That's how powerful conditioning is. It doesn't ask for your permission. It just runs in the background, influencing your decisions, your actions, and ultimately your results. And here's the dangerous part. It feels normal. It feels like you. So you don't challenge it. You defend it. You say things like, yeah, that's just how life is, or that's just the way I was raised, or that's just reality. But what you're really saying is, that's the program I've accepted. But programs can be changed. You have to understand, struggle is not a badge of honor. It's not proof that you're doing something meaningful. It's often a sign that something is out of alignment. But if you've been taught to glorify struggle, you'll wear it proudly. You'll talk about how busy you are, how stressed you are, how hard everything is, as if that makes you more worthy of success. It doesn't, because success isn't about how much pain you can tolerate. It's about how clearly you can see and how effectively you can act. And clarity doesn't come from grinding harder. It comes from thinking better. There are people right now achieving results in ways that look effortless, and it's not because they're lucky. It's because they've unlearned the lie that everything has to be hard. They've replaced it with a new belief that value, alignment, and strategy create results, not unnecessary struggle. And once you start to see that, everything changes. You stop chasing difficulty and you start seeking truth. You stop measuring effort and you start measuring effectiveness. You stop proving how hard you can work and you start proving how well you can think. Because the truth is, ease is not the enemy. Misalignment is. And the moment you break free from the conditioning that glorifies struggle, you give yourself permission to succeed in a different way, a better way, a smarter way. And that's when things start to open up, not because life got easier, but because you finally stopped making it harder than it needs to be. Now let's take it even further, because this is where responsibility becomes power. You have to understand that beliefs are not just ideas you agree with. They are instructions you live by. Whether you realize it or not, every belief you hold is shaping your decisions, your behavior, and ultimately your results. And when those beliefs are wrong, the consequences become very real. You can't afford to treat beliefs like harmless thoughts. They are not neutral. They are creative. They produce outcomes. So if you've been telling yourself things like money is hard to make, opportunities are limited, or people like me don't succeed, you're not just expressing doubt, you're building a system that guarantees those results. Think about it. If you truly believe money is hard to earn, how will you approach opportunities? You'll hesitate. You'll overanalyze. You'll expect things to go wrong. And when something requires effort, you'll say, see, I knew it was hard. That belief becomes self-reinforcing, not because it's true, but because you keep proving it through your actions. Or take the belief that success is rare. If you believe that only a small percentage of people make it, then subconsciously, you won't put yourself in that category. You'll play smaller. You'll avoid risks. You'll settle for less, not because that's all you're capable of, but because that's all you've allowed yourself to expect. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. You won't even realize it's happening because from your perspective, you're just being realistic. You'll say, I'm just being practical, or I'm just keeping it safe. But what you're actually doing is protecting a belief that's limiting your life. Wrong beliefs don't just live in your mind, they show up in your habits. They show up in how you spend your time, how you handle rejection, how you respond to opportunities. If you believe failure defines you, you'll avoid anything that risks failure. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll never fully commit. You'll always hold something back. And then when the results don't come, you'll say, it just didn't work out. But it did work out, just not in your favor, because your beliefs were working the whole time. You see, life doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you believe. And until your beliefs change, your results won't. You can set bigger goals, create better plans, even take more action. But if the foundation is flawed, everything built on top of it will eventually collapse. That's why some people work incredibly hard and still stay stuck. It's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of alignment. They're trying to build success on top of beliefs that contradict it. And no matter how much they push, the results never match the effort. But when your beliefs are aligned with truth, something shifts. You begin to see opportunities where you used to see obstacles. You begin to take action with confidence instead of hesitation. You stop questioning your worth and start expressing your value. And suddenly what once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. Because now your internal system is working for you, not against you. So instead of focusing only on what you're doing, start examining what you're believing. Ask yourself, what must I believe for this result to exist in my life? That question will expose things you've never questioned before. It will reveal the hidden patterns that have been quietly shaping your outcomes. And once you see them, you have a choice. You can keep defending them, or you can replace them, because beliefs are not permanent. They are learned. And anything learned can be unlearned and relearned at a higher level. You don't have to stay stuck in a mindset that was handed to you. You don't have to keep living out a script that's been limiting you for years. You can rewrite it. But it starts with awareness. It starts with honesty. It starts with the willingness to admit that maybe, just maybe, what you've believed isn't serving you anymore. And the moment you change what you believe, you change what becomes possible. Now, here's where things begin to feel different, because once you start correcting your beliefs, you'll notice something powerful. Things don't just get easier, they start to make sense. And that's the difference most people miss. Ease is not about doing nothing. Ease is about doing the right things in the right way, from the right place. A lot of people hear the idea of ease and they think it means no effort, no discipline, no work. That's not what this is. Effort will always be required. But there's a difference between productive effort and unnecessary struggle. One moves you forward, the other just wears you out. When you're out of alignment, everything feels heavy. Simple tasks feel complicated. Decisions feel overwhelming. You second guess yourself constantly. It's like trying to swim against a current. You're moving, but it's exhausting and the progress is slow. Not because success is hard, but because you're not in sync with how success actually works. Alignment changes that. When your thinking is aligned with truth, your actions become more precise. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on what actually matters. You stop saying yes to distractions and start saying yes to direction. And that clarity removes a lot of the friction you used to call struggle. Think about it like this. If you're trying to open a door and you keep pushing when it says pull, it's going to feel difficult. You might even start to believe the door is stuck. But the problem isn't the door. The problem is you're applying the wrong method. The moment you align your action with the way the door is designed to work, it opens with ease. Life works the same way. When you align your mindset with value creation, you stop asking, how can I make money? And start asking, how can I solve problems for people? That shift alone changes everything, because money doesn't come from effort, it comes from value. And when you focus on value, opportunities begin to find you. When you align your actions with your strengths, you stop forcing yourself into roles that drain you. You begin to operate in areas where you're naturally effective. And when you're effective, results come faster, with less resistance. Not because you're avoiding work, but because you're working where you're designed to win. And when your identity aligns with the outcomes you want, you stop hesitating. You stop shrinking. You stop questioning whether you deserve success. You start moving with confidence because your actions are no longer fighting your self-image. That's what alignment does. It removes internal conflict. And when the conflict is gone, the struggle goes with it. But here's what you need to understand. Alignment doesn't happen by accident. It happens by decision. You have to choose to think differently. You have to choose to question the patterns that have been keeping you stuck. You have to choose to operate by principles instead of pressure. Because most people are not operating from alignment. They're operating from survival. They're reacting to circumstances instead of responding with clarity. And when you live in reaction mode, everything feels urgent. Everything feels difficult. Everything feels like a struggle. But when you shift into alignment, you move from reaction to intention. You start doing things on purpose. You start creating instead of coping. And that shift changes the entire experience. You'll still work. You'll still face challenges, but it won't feel like you're constantly fighting against life. It will feel like you're working with it. And that's when you realize something powerful. The goal was never to eliminate effort. The goal was to eliminate unnecessary struggle. Because when you're aligned, effort becomes focused. It becomes strategic. It becomes effective. And instead of draining you, it starts to energize you. Because now you can see the connection between what you're doing and the results you're creating. That's the difference. Struggle confuses you. Alignment clarifies you. Struggle exhausts you. Alignment empowers you. Struggle keeps you stuck. Alignment moves you forward. And once you experience that shift, you'll never want to go back to the old way of doing things. Now, this is where everything comes together. Because even if you fix your thinking, even if you break the conditioning, even if you start aligning your actions, you will still hit a ceiling if you don't address one thing, your identity. Most people are trying to change their results without changing who they are. And it doesn't work that way. You don't get what you want. You get what you are prepared to sustain. And what you can sustain is always tied to your identity. See, your identity is not just what you say about yourself. It's what you believe to be true about yourself at your core. It's the lens through which you see everything. And whether you realize it or not, your identity is setting the boundaries for your life. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will always find a way back to struggle. Even if things start going well, you'll feel uncomfortable. You'll question it. You might even sabotage it, not because you want to fail, but because success doesn't match your internal story. That's why some people can make progress and then lose it. They can build momentum and then break it. It's not a lack of opportunity, it's a mismatch in identity. Their external results temporarily exceeded their internal self-image, and the system corrected itself. Because your life will always move in the direction of who you believe you are. If you identify as someone who is trying to make it, you'll keep trying. If you identify as someone who is always behind, you'll keep finding ways to fall behind. If you identify as someone who is not good with money, it won't matter how much money you make. You'll find a way to lose it. Identity is powerful like that. It doesn't respond to effort. It responds to alignment. So if you want to eliminate struggle at the root, you have to upgrade your identity. Not on the surface, not just with positive words, but at a foundational level. You have to start seeing yourself as someone who operates differently, someone who creates value consistently, someone who thinks clearly, someone who makes decisions with confidence, someone who follows principles instead of emotions. And at first that might feel uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It just means new. You have to give yourself permission to become the person your goals require because your current identity was shaped by your past experiences, your environment, and your old beliefs. But it doesn't have to define your future. You can choose a new standard. And once you do, your behavior starts to shift naturally. You don't have to force discipline. You become disciplined. You don't have to chase motivation. You operate from commitment. You don't have to fight procrastination. You start moving with purpose because now your actions are no longer in conflict with who you believe you are. That's when things start to feel different. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because you're no longer resisting your own growth. You're no longer holding on to an identity that contradicts your goals. And here's the key. Identity is reinforced through repetition. Every time you act in alignment with the person you're becoming, you strengthen that identity. Every decision, every action, every response, it's a vote. So instead of waiting to feel ready, start acting like the person who already is. Make decisions from that place. Speak from that place. Move from that place. Because eventually, what once felt like effort becomes natural. What once felt like a stretch becomes standard. And the things you used to call struggle start to disappear. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped identifying with limitation. You stopped rehearsing old patterns. You stopped shrinking back into what was comfortable. And you stepped fully into who you were meant to become. And when that shift happens, struggle is no longer something you manage. It's something you outgrow.